Welcome back to the tutorial course on Android app development. In this section, we will discuss activities. An activity is an app component that provides a screen with which users can interact to perform an action, such as dialing a phone number, taking a photo, sending an email, or viewing a map. Each activity is given a window so that its user interface can be drawn. An application usually consists of multiple activities that are loosely bound to each other. Let's understand this concept using real-life scenarios. If an Android application resembles a home, then each room is an activity. The following characteristics are exhibited by the activities that are associated with an Android app. One activity in an application is specified as the main activity. This activity is presented to the user when the app is launched for the first time. In a real-life scenario, we can symbolize it as a living room of a home, where the user enters for the first time. Each activity can then start another activity in order to perform different actions. Each time a new activity starts, the previous activity is put in the stop state. The system stores the activity in a stack known as the backstack. In a real-life scenario, we could consider this as closing the doors of the room in which we were previously located before moving to another room, keeping the state of the previously occupied room intact. When a new activity starts, it's pushed into the back stack and takes user focus. The back stack abides to the basic last in, first out stack mechanism. Therefore, when the user is done with the current activity and presses the back button, the current activity is moved out of the stack and it is destroyed. At this point, the previous activity that was saved in the stack resumes. The stack is maintained by managing the activity states. An activity can exist in the following three states. Resumed. In this state, the activity is in the foreground of the screen and has the user focus. Paused. In this state, one activity is in the foreground and has the focus. Then, there is another activity that is visible on top of this one, but it is partially transparent or does not cover the entire screen. Stopped. In this state, the activity is completely obscured by another activity and it's running in the background. A stopped activity is still alive, however, it is no longer visible to the user. The stopped activity can be killed by the system whenever memory is needed elsewhere. All three states make up part of the activity lifecycle. The following are the key characteristics of activity lifecycle. The lifecycle of an activity is directly affected by its association with other activities. An activity is notified of the change in the state through the activity's lifecycle callback methods. Callback methods are the tasks executed automatically during the lifecycle of an activity. The on-screen image shows the lifecycle of activity and its corresponding callback methods. Let's discuss each callback method in detail. OnCreate. The onCreate method is called when the activity is first created. This is where we do all of our normal static setup, create views, bind data to lists, and so on. This method is passed to a bundle object containing the activity's previous state if that state was captured. This callback method is always followed by the onStart method. OnRestart. The onRestart method is called after the activity has been stopped, just prior to it being started again. This callback method is always followed by the onStart method. OnStart. The onStart method is called just before the activity becomes visible to the user. This method is followed by onResume if the activity comes to the foreground, or by onStop if the activity becomes hidden. OnResume. The onResume method is called just before the activity starts interacting with the user. At this point, the activity is at the top of the activity stack where the user input is going to it. This method is always followed by the onPause method. OnPause. The onPause method is called when the system is about to resume another activity. This method commits unsafe changes to persistent data, stops animations and other things that may occupy the CPU, and performs more such actions. The next activity resumes only after this method returns control. This method is followed by either onResume if the activity returns to the front, or by onStop if the activity becomes invisible to the user. OnStop. The onStop method is called when the activity is no longer visible to the user. This may happen because the activity is being destroyed, or because another activity, either an existing one or a new one, is resumed and is covering this activity. This method is followed by the onRestart method if the activity is coming back to interact with the user, or by the onDestroy method if the activity is going away. OnDestroy. The onDestroy method is called just before the activity is destroyed. This is the final call that the activity will receive. It could be called either because the activity is finishing, someone called the finish method on it, or because the system is temporarily destroying this instance of the activity to save space. We can distinguish between finishing an activity and destroying an instance of the activity with the isFinishing method. This brings us to the end of our discussion on activities.